Very good. If you would, look at your purchases for this evening. I believe we have six purchases. And Mr. Goldberg, we have first time reporting on a sole source. Correct, sir? If you'll take a look, council, at your purchases for this evening. Mr. Goldberg can answer any questions on those. Mr. Goldberg, would you mind coming forward? Because I know we have a lot of purchases that involve RFP awards, and see if there is any questions that we have from council. I would appreciate that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. The RFPs that were released for nonprofit agency contracts, we made awards for 5 of the 6 RFPs. We did not make any awards yet for youth programming. The awards are included in the documentation attached to the purchasing sheet, and they reflect the same information that we provided to council in the last strategic planning meeting regarding awards to nonprofit agencies under those 5 RFPs.
Okay. And I wanted to have you come forward to see if there are any questions or comments on these RFP awards now before our 4 o'clock meeting. And I am seeing no lights for you at this time, sir.
And then for the sole source, just a reminder to council, we talked about this in a strategic planning meeting as well, about the fact that we should be reporting all sole source purchases to city council, even if they are under the $50,000 threshold. We always report anything over 50,000 through the normal course of purchases, but we are now going to be reporting anything under 50,000 that was procured on a sole source basis. So we have the first one tonight.
Okay, and that is being added, of course, under another tab in our purchase.
It is. It's similar to emergency purchase where we're simply reporting, not asking for approval.
Well, we appreciate the information and you letting us know. Do we have any RFPs on for this evening?
We have one RFP format tonight.
Okay. Council, if you'll take a look at the RFP request, Mr. Goldberg is available to answer any questions you might have. Mr. Goldberg, I am seeing no lights at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If you will, council, move to your October 11th agenda. And as you look through October 11th, I do want to note we have ordinances on final reading and obviously planning items for first reading. And as we sift through those, I will look for any lights, questions, comments, Madam Vice Chair.
Yes, I did have an amendment for actually on our October 4th agenda, item C under planning regarding the grant. Yes, regarding the grant from the potential grant from the United States Department of Transportation. We needed to update the amount to not exceed $2.5 million. That would accommodate the entire federal match. It should be an 80%, 20% match, which the city's amount, the 20% for the city is $500,000. But we need to update the not to exceed amount to $2.5 million as opposed to just $2 million to make sure that we're able to apply for this federally.
Okay, so that's a correction that needs to be made. It was pointed out this morning. So we'll look for that amendment motion this evening.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Going back to October 11th, I would like to point out economic development item B. Mr. Freeman, we need to, I understand, defer that.
Yes, so we would ask, just because our external counsel that we're working on needed more time to prepare the red lines. And so I don't want to belabor the council, but if the council is okay with moving it back to October the 25th, that would be fine for us.
Okay, so that obviously is next week. If you are okay, I would like to go ahead and let that stand on the agenda and look for the deferral.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any other questions on October 11th? We covered item B. If you'll take a look next at future considerations. And council, let me know if you have any questions. We have a lot of gas, electric, and plumbing board appointments at the end. Give you just a moment to sift through those. I know that we received these earlier, but Mr. Goldberg, we talked a little bit about the debt management policy change and also WIFIA, and I'd sent in some questions, and I'm not going to ask you those questions again because I appreciate, I think, the answers that I received. But a little bit this morning, we had talked about simplifying the caption. Can you walk us through that again?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So the current future considerations document that you have has the finalized captions for each of the 4 resolutions. The first one is to amend the debt management policy. And I do want to mention that for a moment. That's going to be a simple amendment that states addition of a sentence to 3 different sections. And the sentence allows us to go past 30 years for certain debt that's related to federal or state loan programs subject to applicable state law. The reason for that is because the WIFIA term can go past 30 years because of the provision that allows us to make payments up to 5 years after substantial completion of projects. We may not go past 30 years, but it's allowable. And there are other federal and state loan programs that could also come into play here. So we just need to go ahead and update the debt management policy to satisfy that. And the EPA's asked that we do this, and they've provided commentary on what they would like to see. So that resolution will be a 1-page simple amendment to the debt management policy. We will, however, be coming back to council in the next 4 to 6 weeks with a more comprehensive overhaul of the debt management policy. As we reviewed it, I reviewed it with outside counsel as well as our financial advisor, PFM, just for the WIFIA provision. But as we were reviewing it, we did notice that it is an old document. You know, it's over 11 years old. It does have some outdated terminology in it. And there's also been some changes in state law that we need to come in line with under our debt management policy. So we will come back with a comprehensive overhaul of that policy. I think we probably should start updating it more than every 10 or 15 years anyway. But I didn't want to do that now because I don't want to confuse it with what we need to do for the WIFIA loan in particular. So we'll have a very simple amendment that's needed for WIFIA. And then the next 3 resolutions, the first one is a master bond resolution, which we are required to have in order to issue a sewer bond. So we have the master bond resolution next. And all of these documents have been provided to the city attorney's office this morning to Maria, so she can start assembling everything. So next week, when it shows up on the 2-week agenda, you'll have all of the documents, which is hundreds of pages. But the master bond resolution allows us to then go to the next resolution, which is an initial sewer bond resolution. And that is what ties in some of the terminology or the term sheet in the loan agreement with WIFIA. And then we have a supplemental, sorry, I have that backwards. The initial resolution is basically the intent to issue a sewer bond. The third one is the one that ties in the WIFIA loan agreement and term sheet, which amends the previous resolution. So they're in a particular order on purpose based on recommendation from the outside legal counsel. And those 4 resolutions will need to be approved. Once they are approved by council, if you so choose to do so, we will then submit all that documentation to the EPA so we can start moving toward determining a closing date on the loan.
So earlier this morning, I had asked the question a little more simple than obviously you would answer it, but this WIFIA option for us creates another financing tool for us that is very attractive outside and in conjunction with SRF, correct?
Correct. And so WIFIA will fund up to 49% of project cost. So this, especially since we have these 4 really expensive projects that we need to complete for not just for the consent decree, but for the overall capacity of our system. They're very expensive. This gives us the opportunity to pair a significant federal funding source with a very low fixed interest rate with SRF funding and cash that we have in reserves. And we can, bundle all of that together in a debt structure that is very attractive for the city and allows us to complete these projects much faster than we otherwise would be able to.
Very good. Mr. Goldberg, I'm seeing no other lights for conversation, but if I may, Mr. Payne, thanks for coming. I believe, and I would like to go back to tonight's agenda under Public Works, a particular item G. Council, we haven't heard a lot about, but I was hoping it really intrigued me as to this. This is a gift, so to speak, for the city of Chattanooga, and a pretty big amount. And I think anytime we see a dollar amount close to $17 million of grant money, we need to pay it a little bit of attention. So, Bill, will you tell us a little bit how important this project is?
Certainly. So this is a non-competitive grant out of ARP dollars that were allocated to the state of Tennessee, and they were specifically set aside for overall water infrastructure. Of course, the city operates a stormwater system and a wastewater system, which is eligible for those projects. And so of the eligible categories that were there, we were able to identify two projects that were already in our 5-year capital plan, and we had been doing some funding towards those projects. One was the Wet Weather Phase 6 project, which is part of the consent decree and is necessary for us to continue reducing and eliminating sanitary sewer overflows. And then the other is project in it's the Dartmouth 5 Points project, which is over in the Hill City community, and that's been a chronically undersized system. It's really part of the legacy combined. It's partially combined system that is intermingled with a separated storm drainage system that flows through that area, and it's been chronically undersized for years and needs some significant work on it. And so we've been working our way through those. So this will actually help us advance and accelerate the timing on both of those projects, because we won't have to wait for future capital appropriations by the council with city dollars. So this basically allows us to use those dollars in the case of the wastewater project for other needs that we have inside the wastewater system and in the stormwater system as well, using water quality stormwater fees to be able to use those for other needs as well. So it essentially frees up our local dollars for other projects.
That is, that's amazing. As I said earlier this morning, I feel like that's almost 17 million steps closer to improving certain critical infrastructure. And I think that's to be noted, and I hope that we see more of that, but that's definitely very important. Appreciate you coming. Council, any questions on item G? I apologize for not bringing that up earlier, but I think it is very important to note. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. We round out future considerations, looking for any lights and questions or comments. I am seeing none. We do not have any department reports this afternoon. We will now move into committees. Chairman Hester, would you like to take the helm on Parks and Public Works? And then Madam Chair for Planning and Zoning, if you'll follow up and take us on till 4 o'clock. Thank you. Take my stuff and go.
Welcome to Parks and Public Works. Frederick Douglass said, "No struggle, no progress." So let's continue. Can we accept the minutes? Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you read 6A, please?
Charge exemption and section 3114 private sanitary sewer system related to sewer lateral maintenance.
See no hand. Oh, Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman. If you'll allow me to just say thank you once again to Councilman Henderson and his hard work. I know that there are 2 other names sponsored on this, and I'm just honored to add my name to sponsor this, but appreciate the hard work you've done for the people of Chattanooga. I think this was an incredible step towards fairness, and I applaud you, sir. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chairman.
Resolution. Public Works, can you read E, F, and G, please?
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew professional services on call blanket contract for resident project
representative, RPR Services, contract number E20011401 for year 3 of 5 to the 12 consultant firms listed that submitted qualifications in 5 different categories for their qualification package. ASA Engineering and Consulting Inc., Large Design Solutions Inc., Consort Engineering LLC, CTI Engineering Inc., D. Martin and Partners LLC, Franklin Associates Architect Inc., Reagan Smith Associates Inc., S&ME Inc., Southern Environmental Technologies Inc., Thompson Engineering, Fulport Inc., and Woods Environment and Infrastructure for a total amount of $2 million. A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew the professional services on-call blanket contract for landscape architect design services, contract number W1601101 for year 3 of 5 to the 10 consultant firms listed for their qualification package. ASA Engineering and Consulting Inc., Clark Design Solutions, Alfred Benich and Company, CDM Smith Inc., Corey Engineering, HDLA, Reagan Smith Associates Inc., Ross Fowler PC, Stantec Consulting Services Inc., and WMWA Landscape Architects for a total amount of $1,250,000. A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to accept a non-competitive American Rescue Plan grant from the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation Water Infrastructure Investment Program for stormwater and wastewater capital projects at Wet Weather Phase 6, Dixon Pump Station 1, and Dartmouth 5 Points Watershed Stormwater Improvement Project for a total amount of $16,667,052.02.
Thank you. Next week, October 11th, resolution, Public Works, read D, please, 7D, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew the professional services for the on-call blanket contract for stormwater modeling and floodplain analysis services, contract S20004100 for year 3 of 4 to the 5 consultant firms listed for their qualification package. Stantec Consulting Services Inc., CDM Smith Inc., Woods Environment and Infrastructure Solutions Inc., EACOM, and CNME Inc. in the amount of $750,000.
Thanks a lot. I want to say this publicly. I want to ensure that every public works worker, everybody that works in public works, they would be treated fairly, regardless of if you're the lowest person on the talking pole. I'm here to work for, I'm here to chair to ensure that going forward. Thank you. Let's move on to our next committee. Appreciate you.
All right, with that, I call to order the October Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. Can I get a motion on the minutes? Thank you. Is Dan here? Does he want to address the body?
He is not here. He's in an all-day workshop. So I have a slide. If we can pull up the one that starts planning updates, and I can hit just 1 or 2 highlights. On the slide, he said he didn't have anything else to add. We completed the duplex report and sent that to council members, and I believe we are coordinating with Councilwoman Hill on kind of the next steps and any changes that might need to be made on that. Last month, we had our Mountain Creek Road Study public meeting. We have some dates on upcoming items. I'll note that we have a presentation for council on the Climate Action Plan at the end of this month, and some West Side Evolve Plan action coming up. And then the last item looks a little bit cut off, is that there's a zoning code update. We're doing outreach meetings. So we're working on the zoning code update. The way it's set up, the schedule is that Camiris, a consultant firm, is working on actually drafting some of the initial text for review. During this time, we are hoping to hit as many neighborhood association meetings up as possible. We started that by doing a couple the past few weeks, or a couple each week for the past few weeks. If there is an opportunity to speak to a neighborhood association or a group, we are happy to come out. We have a presentation. We can speak a little formally, more informally. But the idea here is just to let folks know the project is underway and to be on the lookout for really when we're starting to kick off, when we have some draft ordinance and some information for them to give feedback on later sometime this winter. So really to let them know a project, get them signed up and be on the lookout for items. But please reach out to me if you have any place or anyone you'd like us to speak to. We're kind of dividing and conquering. Dan's doing some of those, Karen Hunt, Brian Schultz. So we've got a couple staff members available for that. Okay. Moving on.
Yeah, so just to
Oh,
quickly
yes.
follow up on that, thank you, Karen. The completed duplex report is the one where the city took a look at any duplexes that were not currently being used for housing that are potentially able to be brought back onto the rolls as housing. There are not as many duplexes in R1 that are that need assistance to become duplexes again, as perhaps we thought. I believe there's about 25. I think quite a few of them are in District 8, Councilwoman Knoll. So as you think about that and how you, concerns or ideas that you have, please bring those to me so that we can make sure that all perspectives are brought into those conversations. Just to remind all of you, we are going to be looking at the rundown sheet. I emailed you the official rundown this morning. It is the one, it's also in your packet. It has some yellow boxes. It takes us in the order of the cases on the agenda, but we are going to focus primarily on the cases that had opposition at Planning Commission. There is one more that Karen's also going to cover. It's on the second page. It's item E, case number 0177, because it was deferred. It didn't have any opposition this last month at Planning Commission, but there was some opposition the prior month. So we want to make sure we cover that. As we're moving through, if you notice any that you know that you'd like Karen to cover and get additional information, please let me know. Does anybody have any at this point? Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and get Councilwoman Burrs.
Sure. It's the third one down, Madam Chair.
0199.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of questions about that.
Okay.
I would
Great.
like for her to make a presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Terrific. Did you get that, Karen? Item
I
C,
did.
0199. Okay. Any others? Okay. Well, I'll give you, you've got one? Okay. What's that, Councilwoman? Oh, let me get you to, sorry, y'all. Okay, Councilwoman,
Okay, yeah, I
no.
have my light on.
Oh, I
Thank
got all
you.
kinds of lights.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Madam
No.
Chair.
Noel's here.
So I do, if
Oh,
Karen.
hold
could-
on. There we go. Councilwoman Knoll. I apologize, Councilwoman Coonrod. Okay.
Go ahead.
Start over. Okay, so Councilwoman, good Lord. All right, Councilwoman Coonrod, push yours again. Sorry, y'all. Once a month I get up here.
Oh, no problem. We'll forgive you today.
Keeps
But
me
no,
humble.
my light was in reference to the duplexes, not here, because
Oh, okay.
I've been a strong advocate for that to come back online with council. I just want to make sure that I'm also continue to be included in that conversation. Dan and I have been working with it and hosting community meetings about the duplexes.
Yes.
Because I too have a lot of duplexes in District 9, but want to make sure that I'm added to that roster of meetings and look at the
Absolutely.
legislation as well. I do not understand that it's your committee. It's something that I'm very passionate about and very supportive of all housing types in District 9 and the entire city of Chattanooga.
Wonderful. Thank you for bringing that to us. Okay, Councilman Hester.
Yes, I have questions concerning 0195.
Okay, that's item B on the list in yellow.
Correct.
Yes, okay, we'll definitely be discussing that one. Any others? Any others, Councilman?
No, that is
That's
it.
all? Okay. Councilwoman Knoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would like for Karen, if she could please elaborate on item G, H, and I. I'm curious as to why the denial about staff.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we've got our work cut out for us. Take it away, Karen.
Okay, and if I'm struggling using the pointer, or excuse me, it doesn't seem to be advancing slides. And I don't know if, and I can start, if it helps, to be moving things forward with the, while that gets resolved. Oh, there we go. Thank you. The first case, 6A, is a rezoning request for a quarry in Lookout Valley. The request as it stands now is a rezoning from M1 and M2, the M4 outdoor industrial use zone. That is not a common rezoning district that council hears. It's a little bit more of our, a little bit more of intense industrial zone. There was substantial opposition at both the first time it was heard at Planning Commission and also at the second. And I believe there continues to be quite a bit of opposition regarding blasting, noise, truck activity, both from the neighboring property owners and then from residents that are a little farther distant from the site. There is a request to defer from the applicant, and I believe that Councilman Henderson is been addressing the timing on this project. And I'll just,
Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This case, this rezoning case has generated quite a bit of interest, and it does need more work to be done before we hear it at council next week. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to ask that it be removed from the October 11th agenda at this time and added to the November 8th agenda.
Madam Attorney, am I able to remove that from the 10-11 agenda?
Sure, we've done it on another case.
Okay. All right, well, that is fine. If we can make a note of that. We want it to go on the
For it to go
November
on
8th
the
agenda.
November the 8th agenda.
Okay, we've made that note. Thank you very much, Councilman. Okay, we have no other lights. So Karen, if we can move on to case 0195, please.
okay. Item 6B on the agenda did have opposition as well as some email and support. This is a rezoning at 5505 Brainerd Road. That is near its intersection with Spring Creek Road. It's a request to rezone from C2 Convenience Commercial to UGC Urban General Commercial to develop an existing hotel into multifamily apartments. The applicant noted in the application that the proposed density of the multifamily development is not compatible with the existing C2 commercial zone. The property is in red there, as is that's the C2 zone, which is much of the commercial strip along Brainerd Road. And the applicant is requesting the rezoning to have 102 units. C2 and UGC have a similar range of uses, although the development form, and in this case, the density can be different. The C2 zone has a density of approximately 18 to 19 units an acre, and there is no maximum density in the UGC zone. The applicant is proposing around 49 dwelling units an acre. The applicant does intend to use the existing structure. The surrounding land uses are a mix of commercial office and single-family residential. Those commercial office uses are found along Brainerd Road with the single-family residential to the north, and the folks in opposition did come from those neighborhoods to the north. This is the Motel 6, currently used as a Motel 6. They're proposing to redevelop. Surrounding development form is suburban strip commercial along Brainerd Road, but there is a large single-family residential to the rear of the site that includes larger lots and about a quarter to a half acre lots. The proposed UGC zone will introduce a new development form in this suburban area. UGC has that more kind of those urban setbacks and does allow for an increased density over the C2 commercial zone. There is no specific land use plan for the area, but the countywide development policy from the comprehensive plan identifies this area as having development potential appropriate for infill and redevelopment that is urban and walkable, and the most potential for future public services. The proposed UGC zone and multifamily development is compatible with that plan recommendation, and the proposed redevelopment will use the existing hotel structure, although redevelopment of the site with larger, taller buildings can occur under both the current and the proposed rezoning. And that note is really thinking about compatibility with the adjacent R1 residential development. So the proposed, there was opposition at Planning Commission. Again, nuisances and crime, particularly concerns about drugs and prostitution were mentioned. And Planning Commission did recommend approval for the UGC subject to the following conditions, and these are those found in the ordinance. Maximum building height of 2.5 stories or 35 feet, and adult-oriented uses, self-service storage facilities, adult-oriented establishments, hospitals, and wholesaling with accessory warehousing and related office space shall be prohibited. I'll note the existing C2 zone, which allows that wide range of commercial uses, does not have conditions. So staff had recommended these to Planning Commission to limit out some of the uses that are viewed usually by residents as incompatible. So this provided an opportunity to limit some of the uses in that commercial zone. So this does come with a recommendation to approve UGC with those conditions.
Councilwoman Burrs?
Karen, my screen doesn't have all the conditions. It's just got these two. I don't have my whole screen.
And I am not controlling that. So if the
Sir, ma'am, could we please see the whole screen? I can't see who's back there. I'm sorry.
I think the slide is not completely shown on the screen. It's cut off on the bottom, and that shows the conditions. It's the one before that. I'm sorry, if we could see the whole slide.
Nope, nope.
No, go back.
Thank you.
So that's right at where my district is too. And I can't tell you the number of complaints there have been about this property. Are the same people redeveloping? You said there were a number of units. Are they just motel rooms turned into efficiency apartments? I don't have a feel for that. Yeah, Councilman and I have talked about it. So I know you do too, Councilman Hester, some more details about it.
I can speak briefly to the applicant conveyed at Planning Commission that yes, that they will convert the hotel rooms into residential units, which includes like a kitchenette. And I think conveyed that this is felt a trend, something they've done elsewhere, and a trend that they are seeing elsewhere is converting hotels to multifamily apartments.
I believe they're local. Where have they done that elsewhere?
I believe he spoke to a place in Athens, Georgia, but I would defer to the applicant for more information. I don't have an example of a local. He did speak to some other products that as an example of where this had been done.
Hit your light. Councilman Hester.
I've spoken a lot with Councilwoman Burrs, and there are a lot of valid concerns in the North Brainerd area concerning this place being a public nuisance, crime, prostitution, drugs, and they're afraid this apartment complex is going to be changed, transformed to the same. Nothing's really going to change. So I think once I do have a conversation with the applicant, then I guess we could have a better assessment on which way we're going to go with this. But I think one thing for sure, I want to defer this at least for a month until we can come to solution. Right.
Would it be helpful if I asked the applicant to send some specific examples of where they've done this elsewhere, and just their experience in this type of use?
It would be helpful.
Okay.
Right.
Anything else, Councilman?
That's it.
Is that all?
That's it. Right.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. I too agree with my colleagues. Like this, part of District 9 is in the footprint of the North Brainerd area as well. And my concerns are the same as what the community have already voiced. There's been numerous meetings around it. There really hadn't been any change since they closed it down previously and then reopened it. The same activity is going on, and the developer said the exact same thing. Oh, we're going to improve it. We're going to this and we're going to that. And it's probably more of the nuisance issues happening even more so now than it was then. The drugs, the crime, the prostitution. Like there's really not, anything that they've done to alleviate that or to reduce it. People are overdosing over the phone, numerous police calls. Like it's just ongoing. And what bothers me the most about these type things, and I'm supportive of housing, so I don't want my statements to get taken the wrong way, but the concerns that I have is around the nuisance issues that we continue to see in communities that have been declining. And we've seen, all of us, how that Brainerd Road corridor is declining severely. We have, businesses that are leaving that area, and we have, heavy traffic of things that shouldn't be going on in that community. Once that was considered a very thriving community, that is no longer there. It's been neglected, and we see how that goes. So we have developers coming in and saying, "Oh, we're going to fix it up," misleading the area. So I would like to see how it's going to be an added value for that area to help improve the area versus just putting a Band-Aid on it, and then the same issues continue to happen.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing no lights, Karen, we can move on to 0199, please.
Okay, and if you don't mind, I'm going to skip and go to 177, 197 and come back to that, just the way I ordered
Okay.
the slides. If bear with me. Okay, case 177 is a request to rezone from R4 to UGC Urban General Commercial Zone, to develop a residential apartment complex with 20 units, and this is in the Fort Wood area. The case did have opposition, quite a bit of opposition at the August meeting, but there was none at the September meeting, which is why the slide shows no there. Properties at the intersection, and I apologize that still seems a little bit out of alignment there. The property is at the intersection of Central Avenue and East 4th Street. The request is to redevelop the site with 20 apartment units, and I'll flip forward to help you orient. So this might be hard to see the map. So this is the unit that fronts on Central, and we're looking at it from 4th Avenue. Yes.
Pause, please. This is what our screens look like. It's not helpful. They're all cut off halfway. If we could get it into presentation mode, that would be really helpful. Or if you could move the slides to center them on our screen every time she moves, that would be great. We need the full slide, please. Can we view the PDF in full screen? That's much better. We have a slide button, do we not? All right, we just need to be able to see the entirety of each slide on the screen each time, please. All right, Karen, take it away. Well, no, now we're black. The staff works too hard to get all this on in detail for us not to be able to see it. Darren, I'll never get your screen back the way it was. Sorry, man. Yeah.
It'd be the 26th, probably about the 26th slide. There we go. That's perfect. So I can go back. Okay.
Thank you, Karen. Go ahead.
So the need for this rezoning is based on density requirements. The property is zoned R4 special zone, as is much of the property in Fort Wood. It's that kind of brownish zone. And the R4 special zone does allow a wide range of residential uses. However, based on the lot size requirements, this is a 0.38 acre lot. And the person would like to develop the 20 units. The UGC zone is the zone that would permit the form and density requested by the applicant. So again, the site and the property of the west and south are zoned R4, and the Fort Wood Historic District is immediately south of the site. The surrounding development form is a mix of urban, single-family residential, and historic lots of record, medical offices with large parking lots, surface parking lots, and small multifamily residential. Staff found the proposal compatible with that surrounding development form. The downtown plan doesn't give guidance on specific parcel level land use recommendation, but does provide guidance generally on future development. The plan notes that a variety of housing types should be built in the downtown to promote diversity, and the plan notes that the building densities should be much higher in the downtown rather than other parts of the city to make more efficient use of available land to support transit, pedestrian activities, schools, and neighboring businesses. And the plan also notes that two major institutions, UTC and Erlanger, could reemerge as thriving residential areas. There was opposition at Planning Commission regarding traffic, parking, activity height, compatibility, and precedent. There was quite a bit of discussion, Planning Commission on the first hearing about those items. The applicant did revise the site plan and provide additional renderings in response to the concerns expressed at the first Planning Commission meeting. And Planning Commission found that the request is compatible with the downtown plan, adjacent land uses, and development form with those conditions in place. So Planning Commission's recommending approval of UGC, subject to the following conditions: residential uses only. This next one's a little wordy, but is intended to protect single-family residential properties, maximum height of any portion of building or structure, except single-unit living detached within 15 feet of a common lot line abutting a protected zone is 2.5 stories or 35 feet. Property separated by a street or alley is not considered abutting, and maximum height of 4 stories, excluding the height restriction listed above. So the conditions are intended to address height next to the neighboring single-family residential uses.
Thank you, Karen. Councilwoman Knoll?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Karen,
Yes.
I did receive, I do believe, this is over here near Lincoln Park, is that correct?
It's south of 3rd Street. So this is that, it's across from, sorry, I'm trying to get a,
It's early.
it is that, the building, the front's on Central, it backs up to the commercial corridor of 3rd Street,
Okay.
or the medical corridor.
Okay, so I did receive 2 phone calls in reference to opposition for this, so, if this is the same place, and I'm quite sure it is, this is what they're talking about.
And I mentioned that there was not opposition at the next meeting, and I'm not sure if there continues to be opposition. I don't know if the conditions are put in place addressed any of that, but they're kind of wordy, that particularly that second one. So if someone wants to know how that would actually impact them, we're happy to talk to anyone about
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I actually got them a couple of days ago, the phone calls. Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Coonrod?
Thank you, Chair. This particular property has been an asshole in the community for some years. I'm happy that somebody finally is wanting to upgrade it. I do remember when, African-American resided in those apartments. They were quite, low-income housing, as well as the apartments that kind of go up the hill right next to it. I think it's, you know, an opportunity to discuss maybe with the developer, like what are the intentions of rent prices and things like that, since housing is a concern. Um, but I am happy to see that somebody is redeveloping and putting it back on the market.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I'll make a note that the predominant conversation at Planning Commission from the opposition was about the fact that it's adjacent to a historic district. And the staff had done the research to point out that this was not within that historic district. And then directly across the street is the medical office building. Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Karen. I don't have any other lights on that one.
Okay, I'll move forward to 197 and then come back to the others. So case J on the agenda is 197. It's a request is a rezoning on South Germantown Road to RTZ, Residential Townhouse Zero Lot Line Zone with conditions. And the applicant proposed the two conditions, which are two single-family residential lots only, and each lot shall have a minimum area of 7,500 square feet. So the proposed use under this RTZ zone is two single-family detached residents. This might look familiar to you. There has been two other cases this year on the same site. One was withdrawn at prior to council or at council, and one case was withdrawn prior to Planning Commission. So this is the applicant's third case this year on the site with a request for just developing the two homes. The existing development form, there was opposition at Planning Commission, which is why I'm covering this one. The existing development form immediately surrounding the site primarily consists of single-family detached homes. And there's not a specific land use plan for the area. The countywide plan generally identifies this site as having potential for infill and redevelopment. So the opposition at Planning Commission was around spot zoning, the kind of the historic nature of the neighboring communities, concern about rental unit. They just felt like shoehorning two homes in here did not work. Planning Commission found that the request is not compatible with the plan policy, not compatible with adjacent land uses and development form, and is recommending denial for this rezoning.
Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. I'm taking a hard stance against this one. Why? Because right now we're in the crisis of needing all types of housing for people with various incomes. And this guy, the developer, have worked with the community each time. The first time they presented 8 townhomes and the commission approved it. The community wasn't on board for that. He reduced it from 8 to 4. The community still have an issue with that. We met numerous times, and what the community did voice is that they will support single-family housing. This is single-family housing. What bothers me or ruffles my feathers when people want to say, we don't want rental housing in our community. Well, you had to rent a house in order to become a homeowner eventually. Everybody have rented something in their lifetime. But there's also in this community all kind of rental houses that's happening there. There's a community of duplexes that I grew up in as a foster kid that's right in this community. So we've got to stop saying, just community members, we don't want this in our community. We don't want that in our community like that. And it happens all the time in these supposedly elite communities that's got all kind of stuff happening within them, but you don't want certain things in it. So I'm going to be moving forward. I'm going to go against the recommendation. I think the housing type is necessary, and he's done every single thing that have been asked from this community. There's no reason for him to continue to have to go back and forth to try to get him the perfect drawing of a house or how they want it to be. That's not our role for council, but I have went above and beyond with this community, and it really just boils down to they don't want rental housing. He can put it on the market and he can sell it if he chooses to, but it will be priced at an amount that, the people that he want to house, that we're often talking about a core group of people, they wouldn't be able to afford to purchase it. So giving them an opportunity to provide rental that will be accessible and affordable to their income. That's what the developer is trying to do. And that's what we need more people doing and willing to do. And I'll deal with the backlash of it. But right now, I'm going against the recommendation.
Make a comment. Staff also supported the rezoning. And the applicant, I mentioned at the beginning, the applicant had recommended 2 conditions. We recommended tweaking that first condition to be really, really clear on what can go there. I think it is so that's just clarifying, trying to be really clear that with the rezoning, there are only going to be 2 single-family detached homes. So I'll just bring to your attention that we tweaked that first condition a little bit to lock it down a little bit more, just to make sure there was, not a workaround, but staff also supported the rezoning at the site.
I appreciate that because that's what, we've been in talks about, just to make sure that the developer understands, Aaron, that he understands, like, here's the line. This is what you're able to draw. It ain't no manipulating it. We don't want any loopholes to say, because of this, I was able to do this portion of it. None of that. Single family homes.
And then the site plan is showing the lot configuration for that site. Okay.
Thank you, Karen.
And I'll go back up to the top, which is the East Brainerd Road rezoning case. It is in Councilwoman Burr's district. This is a rezoning on East Brainerd Road, just off of Brainerd Road, rezoning to RT1 from R1 for 8 units, townhouse development. There was not opposition, but I will spend a couple minutes on this slide. You'll see it's kind of hard to see on the coloring. The yellow is the R1. You're going to see quite a bit of O1, which is the pinkish shade. And there is a history of O1 zoning in the area. I'm just going to bring attention to that there's at least 3 or 4 cases in the area with conditions with O1. Conditions range from using the existing residential structure, maintaining a single-family residential appearance. Parking is often addressed, signage is addressed. So there is a pattern in the area of that O1, kind of a lower intensity O1, maintaining more of a residential feel. Because I know that has been work and that the community has done. The surrounding land uses include single-family residential offices and commercial development. Staff felt that the moderate density development is compatible with that mix of land uses because that kind of serves as a transition between the auto-oriented commercial uses along Brainerd Roadley Highway and more traditional single-family residential development as you move eastward along East Brainerd Road. We note that offices along East Brainerd Road are developed within those existing family residential structures and felt that moderate density residential could be appropriate here. It is a transitional use, but did note that existing office pattern. So staff recommended approval with a 6-foot wooden fence along the property line with the property to the east. There was an opposition at Planning Commission, and Planning Commission found that the request was compatible with adopted plan, adjacent land uses and development form, and recommended approval with the same condition for the installing a 6-foot tall wooden opaque fence along the property line of tax map parcel to the east.
Thank you, Karen. Councilwoman Burrs.
Thank you. I've already said this to Karen, but I'll say it on the record. I don't even know where this came from. We spent years making this a transitional zone, offices, O1, with the conditions you talked about. As a matter of fact, a gorgeous O1 just went in across the street. We have physicians' offices across the street. And I don't even know how you all could recommend this, given the fact that you designed and there was no opposition because the community worked long and hard and trusted that you would keep what they and you had designed for, 10 or more years.
I think the first
So
case was 99, maybe.
Yeah, I don't. Well,
So
it wasn't
yes.
that long because I wasn't even in office, but I
Right.
know that I worked with John Bridger, And we were trying to figure out how do you transition into neighborhoods and have it be a smooth transition and not get garbage along the street. And everybody that's built along there has gone along with those recommendations. And then they just finished this beautiful one because they were held to that. And then this comes up. And I'm thinking, it doesn't make any sense. Nobody I guess told the developer about this long history of old ones, and they're all offices and they are beautiful. And the one across the street, everybody's held to that, trying to be good citizens. And then all of a sudden this, on top of that, the developer has never spoken with me. If he had, I would have said, you know what, we have a long history of this, the RPA. Yeah. So right now I'll be deferring it until next tomorrow, or tabling it forever. I just don't even know where this came from.
Okay. Would you like the developer to contact you?
Well, it's kind of, I mean, I'm sure he's going to say, I've spent all this money and blah, because RPA never told them that there was a history. He can do whatever he wants. I mean, I would be happy to explain that to him.
Okay.
That may be a good idea.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Right now, I will be deferring it for at least a month, but I'm thinking right now I may be tabling it forever
Okay.
or saying no.
Okay.
All
I
right,
can
thank
s-
you.
I can
Alright.
speak with the applicant, explain the history, and I know that we've done some kind of little kind of a overview of the activity along that corridor, talking about the office rezonings over time, and I will have him prepared to understand that prior to contacting you.
Be very nice. I don't know why when he put in the plan, somebody in RPA or somewhere didn't say, oh gosh, we have a long history. If you go along the road, you know it doesn't even fit in. As I can tell you, the ones across the street have spent fortunes complying with the law. And somehow RPA didn't get the memo to him, Karen. That's unfair to him. And I don't understand, but sure, I'll be
Okay.
happy to speak with him.
And our next staff review, we can kind of review the activity just to make sure anyone that's talking to folks are aware of the zoning history along that portion of the corridor.
Yeah, and so far people have been fine with it. Developers have done beautiful jobs. I think it was kind of unfair to him, but yes, ma'am, it won't go forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. And I will move over to the somewhat confusing 205, 206, and 207. And so there are 4 cases from the applicant Josh Barr, starting with F. I will, you have seen Josh's Barr has been an applicant in the same area for a couple of other cases. So he is a common applicant. So I'm going to start with, this is rather confusing because we've had so many cases, so I'm really going to have to rely on my notes. The first one that we're talking about is 205. All the cases, I'll go back here. All the cases are south of the cemetery and north of Main Street. So between the industrial developments you're seeing to the west and I guess that's Holtzclaw. There's quite a bit of cluster of activity. I believe there were a lot of properties that went up for sale at the same time. So let me get through. I'm going to start by saying that we have a plan for the area, which is the Area 3 plan. And we've used some recommendations, and I took some of this out from the Area 3 plan. We have used some recommendations for the Area 3 plan for Mr. Barr and other zoning cases in the past couple months. But we found that There's a unit per lot range discussed in the plan that doesn't give appropriate guidance regarding density or the number of units, as there's a wide range of lot sizes. The Area 3 Historic River to Ridge Plan recommends primary uses and then talks about secondary uses and uses the term units per lot. We've, after using the plan for about a year, realized that's not quite getting us where we want to go. So, RPA started using other plan guidance to determine approach to meet the intent of that urban residential description. So for consistency, RPA was using the full plan text to recommend a building massing and setbacks should be compatible with the existing neighborhood. And while there may be a mention of density, for staff's recommending the RT zone, T zone is a good zone to implement the urban residential place type in the plan. So we've had quite a few rezonings in the area. Some of them are really, really dense and maybe not quite as in keeping with what we think the plan recommendation is based on the guidance from the plan. So we use these series of 4 to explain how we're thinking about the plan a little bit differently. And so although he's requesting townhomes and for all 4 of these cases, staff kind of says, hey, this is how we're thinking about them. And then there's a little bit different recommendations for them. So that makes it a little bit more confusing. So staff's approach for 205, I'll go back. The applicant was requesting UGC, and I mentioned, I think during the Brainerd Road hotel apartment case, that UGC does not have a maximum density. So we are getting a lot of UGC rezonings for residential properties. The applicant in this case has self-imposed conditions of residential use only and a maximum of 3 stories. So townhomes, and we found a density of, in this case, 14 units. We have not had opposition to any cases really in this area for several years, or that I remember at Planning Commission. So staff recommended denying the UGC and approving that RTZ with conditions, again, trying to make it a little bit more compatible based on our understanding of what the plan fully was trying to accomplish. And there was no opposition, but Planning Commission recommended approving the UGC with the conditions proposed, maximum 3 stories, residential units only, and then implement the plan, the alley to be used for access and parking located to the rear of the property. That was helping with compatibility. There's quite a bit of discussion at Planning Commission, I'm going to say generally on these cases, and Planning Commission is very supportive of residential housing, and it really felt that the uses as proposed were compatible. So there's a series of those. This one is on the corner, and we kind of have a map showing where all of them are. Then, but they have different. So this is the site plan for the one that, staff was recommending the RTZ for. H is just down the street. Again, the same conditions the applicant's recommending. You start to see a pattern. Staff recommended denying the UGC and use the RTZ as the development tool. That's going to bring down the density, address massing a little bit more, have a setback that might be a little bit more compatible with single family, but this is a very transitional area. This one is on the 3 lots that you see there. And the applicant's site plan is, because they're all slightly a little bit different. This one's just a little bit of variation on that site plan. So this one, again, staff's again trying to bring down the density a little bit. Planning Commission saying seems like a really good place for density due to the proximity of the Main Street corridor and transit and just the walkable urban environment. And then the last one is slightly different, 207, and I know I'm skipping some of the details on these, but there is a lot of similarity. This one, the applicant was recommending a maximum of 5 townhomes only. This one, staff recommended deny. Staff felt that the existing zone was appropriate at this location, but Planning Commission felt the urban general commercial zone, and again, density in units was appropriate here. They felt it's a mix in the area, and so this is the lot proposed for the 5 units. One of the questions from planning commissioners was asking about the manufacturing across the street. I think just really to emphasize that there is that mix of uses in the area. You see some other UGCs, and then we're just about a block or two off Main Street. You'll see some manufacturing just a block south of this. So this one, staff was recommending the current zone really seemed to fit. I think Planning Commission felt that its location on the corner across from that industrial development really would make this compatible. And so they're recommending UGC on this one. So I think, generally the trend being staff is trying to bring down density and make the setbacks. And I think Planning Commission said it's really a mix already. You've got a manufacturing uses scattered in there. And so important to have housing that they recommended the UGC.
Thank you, Karen. Councilwoman Knoll.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Karen. When I look at a map, it makes no sense to me. So I am the one that has to go and drive and lay my eyes on the site. And I have met Josh out there before on another development that he was doing. So it's all in that same area. So I was familiar with the area, but I was trying to understand why you all denied it. So it was because he was wanting to go higher.
It is probably more the massing, larger massing, reduced setbacks, bringing it up to the street, where in some of the residential areas, you're seeing front setbacks, lower massing, you see a home and then some open space in a home. So we were trying to reflect that pattern while allowing townhomes in a little bit more taller, more, a different use. So we were just trying to get a little bit of I guess the way the building sits on the lot, we felt more compatible with the surrounding residential. And I think that Planning Commission's thinking it's already transitioning in some areas. And this is a really great opportunity to get more units in, bring them up to the street, because this will be a more urban, walkable area, even with those zones in place.
Right, because those homes out there are small homes, very cute, but small. Would not want too much towering over them, but okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I realize it's probably helpful, particularly if you want to do a site visit, making a better map showing all the rezonings we've had kind of in the area recently in the past few months. And so you can kind of see the status of them too. And we'll make that and send that to you. Okay. Right.
All right, Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. This too is an area that I'm very familiar with. It's a community that was once predominantly Black, African American people lived there. It had, a lot of secondary poverty, absolute and relative poverty in this area, the drug deals, the crime, all that stuff. So I can imagine if no one showed up in opposition, because it's just drug dealers that's on the corner. They're not getting the letters to come for opposition. But I'm excited to see some investment taking place in the area. I wish it was a way to be inclusive of, trying to keep some of the people to be able to afford to stay there in that area, because it's transitioning it really fast. It went to an area that was less desirable to one of the most desirable areas to live in, which is cool. I mean, my hope is that the entire Chattanooga will become a desirable area for everybody to want to live and feel safe in the area. So this area is becoming safe when you start seeing people running and walking and, pushing their kids in strollers. That is considered a safe neighborhood again. So this is one of those that have become deemed as safe. So I'm really excited about the opportunities that's happening in that community.
And hopefully the conditions, residential, monitoring the height will help with neighbors that are still there, help them, with compatibility. And all these are currently vacant lots. If you go out and look at them, they look like they've been vacant for a while.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Welcome.
I think that covers all the cases that we had pulled out. Is there anything else anybody? Okay, I've got Councilman Henderson. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've got a process question about planning, and I noticed that we had a case on our Lee Highway case that was pulled from the agenda outside of the Planning and Zoning Committee. I don't know if you have the answer to this question, or maybe the chairman. What is the process for this making its way back onto the agenda in a way that the public has noticed that it is back on our agenda?
That's a great question. I'd like to defer to the chair of the council for that. Chairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. The process is, in this particular case, the applicant is the city of Chattanooga. And throughout conversations and emails that I've received, had asked to have this item removed. So basically, the item is not ready to be heard. So if you're asking about the process is when the city fulfills its obligation to the citizens of this area and promises are kept, then I'm assuming that the city will notify this council that it is then ready to have this item placed on until those processes and promises were kept.
Sure. I mean, so it will be added in a planning and zoning committee, I guess, in a public forum.
I would, yes, sir, and I believe that would be the correct process, is that I'll absolutely be presented in planning and zoning committee. Yes, yes, sir.
Correct. Yeah, so
Absolutely.
we would hear all about it
Yeah,
prior to
public
it
notice
going
is-
on.
Yes, absolutely, and it will be noticed in proper time frame when that process is and promises are fulfilled. Yes, thank you. I appreciate that question. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councilman Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One piggyback question on that, since it is a zoning case, and I know that city is the applicant, but did it go through the same process going through RPA and
It did.
it was heard through that?
Mhm. It was heard at planning and passed.
So it was then announced to be heard by the council when it was heard at planning, is that correct? We normally
Well-
publicize at planning when the case will be heard by the council.
Yes, however, I think there was something where it wasn't maybe on an agenda. The chairman mentioned to me when it didn't show up on this agenda.
So if I'm reading the question, Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. If I'm reading the question correctly, it is, if it is noticed at Planning Commission that it will be heard on a specific date, that in itself has lent itself to another conversation. I don't know how Planning Commission, and I've been on there for 5.5 years, can actually say it will be heard, because that's actually setting the agenda for council.
Mhm.
Something may happen. I mean, God forbid the world ends. You will never see that.
Mhm.
But something may happen during that time. And as far as I understand, according to this council, we set our agenda,
Yes.
not Planning Commission. So something did develop. And I think that in order to rely back on when it was announced at Planning Commission is something I actually am going to address with the help of RPA. And Karen and I have already had this conversation. And also to take that a step further, when we post, like, for example, in the Chattanooga, 2 weeks in advance, well, that actually, like, for example, on the October 11th that we're seeing in the Chattanooga right now, it gave me some pause too. Something can happen just because it's published in the media. That's a future considerations item.
Mhm.
It is not set in stone, because this action of this body tonight completely alters that agenda. So we should probably be really conscious of that, if that makes sense. So that's something that I'm going to help with the RPA's help in addressing at Planning Commission, is when those dates are set, that they are not a promised date, because things can happen.
Mhm.
Like tonight, if we were to deny an item, it would not be on next week's agenda.
Mhm.
And that can happen in a myriad of different scenarios.
Mhm.
Hopefully that helps.
Yes, well, and even in the course of our conversation today, we've taken things and moved them off of an agenda. For example, we were anticipating some TIF information, and it's been pushed back
Correct.
a couple weeks. So
Correct.
these
So-
things, this is the ebb and flow of government.
Yeah, and let me stress this, and I appreciate the question being brought to me because it's really providing an opportunity to fix something that I think we've kind of not really paid much attention to, especially when we're say at Planning Commission that this will under no circumstance change. Well, that things could change, and make clear that Planning Commission does not set the council agenda. The council and the chairman, or the chairwoman, whoever it may be, sets the agenda. And I think that's important for us to actually realize. And I think we'll make some progress and we'll actually come out of this a much better process.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Smith.
Thank you. That helps a lot. And I wasn't saying that planning sets our agenda. I was asking about the fact that the public was notified with an expectation of it being on the agenda. I believe our agenda is ours and we should be able to change it anytime that we feel the need for it. But in the past, if an item was heard at planning, then we had to take action on that item. And that is something that sounds like we're going to be changing moving forward, as opposed to taking an item just off of the agenda with no notice after there was an expectation that we would hear it at some point in time. And I was just curious if there was a reason that we don't just withdraw it as course of it being on the agenda, as opposed to just pulling it and then not acting on it as a body. And the chair may have cleared that up. That was the part of process wise, because in the past we have had planning items and we've been advised, do not just take them off the agenda because they were advertised. You need to go ahead and withdraw them as part of public process. And I was just making sure that we weren't doing one thing differently. And the chair may have answered that question.
Madam Attorney, would you like to add anything? Just,
I believe that
Councilman
the
Henderson.
removal of it was noticed in a public notice, and it was a clerical error that it wasn't subsequently removed from that agenda. And I'm looking for that notice now, but I think that was where that came. It was sent out in a public notice that it would be removed.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you. And Councilor Smith, that I had sort of the same concerns. And one of the things I had talked to the chairman about is maybe the RPA could notice our planning and zoning committee as the date that we would be discussing it publicly, so that if anything did change from that agenda, it could, I guess, be publicly noticed, like I requested for the zoning item that I had in District 1 to be moved to the November date, which was in a public meeting, and anybody that would be here would be privy to that. So I think maybe one of the solutions is reference our planning and zoning committee date as opposed to our actual date of council agenda, so that RPA is not setting our agenda.
I'll take that under consideration. You know, one thing that we have been doing since I've taken over the chairmanship of this committee is not going over every single case in detail. And so wouldn't want to set an expectation that that we wouldn't plan on fulfilling. So I'll think about that and chat with the attorney and RPA about that. Thank you for that idea. Any other conversation? Okay, well, with that, I will adjourn our Planning and Zoning Committee and we will resume at 4.
That item was removed from the agenda.